Khaldoon, thank you again for inviting us into your home to do the end of season interview. Really only one place we can start, on the back of a treble, winning a fourth consecutive Premier League title. How did that make you feel?
Well, it feels like these last 2 seasons are one season, almost interconnected. Finishing last summer, winning the Champions League, it happened so fast. We had a very short pre-season, and then straight back at it, the Charity Shield, the Super Cup, and then we go on to the season. And to finish it off winning our 4th Premier League in a row. Now, unlike last year, Chris, you did the interview the morning of winning the Champions League, the day after, where it was, exhausting. I didn't even have time to really properly think this one through and let it sink in. This time, fortunately, we've had a week, so I've had a lot of time to think about this. We have to always sometimes pause and contextualize. Since 1926, 5 teams have attempted to win 4 times in a row. 5 teams. Huddersfield, Arsenal, you had Liverpool in the 80s, and then you had Manchester United, who attempted it twice. None of them succeeded. So over 100 years of English football, never any team was able to achieve 4 championships in a row. So once that sinks in, you start really appreciating the magnitude of what was achieved, the difficulty, the challenge, the tenacity required, and then you really, now, a week after, in a relaxed way, you can answer Chris.
Because there were times during the season when it didn't look likely. Were you worried at certain points that it wasn't going to happen? I mean, every game was a cup final from December onwards, basically, in the league.
So I'll tell you something. I will tell you that. Actually, let me ask myself the question: when did I know we were going to win the league?
When did you know you were going to win the league?
Yes. I'm going to surprise you with that one.
Go on.
Arsenal away. We didn't play particularly well. We didn't play particularly bad. I think it was an off game by our standards. But I don't think we deserve to lose. If you remember, we lost with that deflected goal in the last minutes. I said, this is why we're going to win the league. Today, I know how this team is going to react going forward, and I know we're going to win the league.
So the question is, 4 in a row, what next?
5 in a row.
Sounds good to me.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. Actually, to be clear, this is, I think, something that I'm most proud of in this club and in this entire organization we have, from top to bottom. I would say, if you ask this question to anyone, they will answer probably the same answer. Players, executives, physios, board, whoever you're going to ask, they'll answer the same thing. 5 in a row. And by the way, that 5 in a row, in our minds, happened the second that final whistle against West Ham. I remember just going down to the pitch and telling almost everybody I saw, excellent, fantastic result, we're so proud, but now we're going for 5 in a row.
How do you reflect then on, so the World Club Cup was won, the Super Cup was won, how do you reflect on those and the cup competitions? It seemed we were that far away from another treble.
I mean, let's be clear, we didn't lose a single game in the Champions League. No team actually beat us in 90 minutes or 120 minutes. We lost at the end of the day at the jeopardy of penalty kicks. And penalty kicks, winner or loser, it's a flip of a coin at the end of the day. So we gave it an incredible shot. We got to the quarterfinals. We played against our rival, the most decorated team in European club history. But there's always a silver lining. That gives us more hunger, more tenacity. You can see today I'm delighted, and I think I reflect how our coaching staff, how our management team, how our leadership, the board, the owner, His Highness Sheikh Mansour, and of course everybody in our staff. Everybody feels obviously proud and delighted with what we achieved this year.
I have to ask, has anything changed in the last 12 months with regard to the charges brought by the Premier League? Are you still frustrated? And how much of an impact has the constant referencing of them had on you and the club?
Yeah, of course it's frustrating. I think the reference is always frustrating. having it being talked about the way it's being talked about. I can feel, of course, for our fan base, for everyone associated with the club, to have these charges constantly referenced. I think we, as a club, have to respect that there's a process that we have to go through, and we're going through it. It's taking longer than what anyone hoped for, but it is what it is. And I've always repeated that in every interview I've done with you, Chris, is let's be judged by the facts and not by claims and counterclaims.
Thank you. So if we move on to Pep now, I mean, obviously the players take a lot of the plaudits, but is it possible for you to put into words, not about him as a manager, but him as a man, before we talk about his contract situation? What has he brought to City? What does he bring to the organisation as a human being, not just a football manager?
It's hard to put in words what Pep has given this organisation, this club. You can look at just records for history's sake, and there I think he's racked up, every record almost in the book. And these are records that I think will be very, very hard in the future to ever break, from winning 6 out of the last 7 Premier Leagues to winning 4 in a row, to the number of wins, to, the records go on and on and on. But also beyond that, I think what his impact has been on football. English football has changed with the evolution to the type of football that Pep has brought in to the league. But beyond all that, I would say one of the things I am particularly proud of, and I think Pep has brought two points. The last game of the season against West Ham, and then the FA Cup final. In the last game of the season, the chair of the Premier League, Alison, went and obviously delivered the trophy to Pep and then the team. She came back afterwards and we had a conversation, and she told me something that I think echoed very much in my heart. She said, you have to be very proud. I encountered something that was quite unique, giving the trophy to the team. And I asked her, what was it? She said every single member of the team, from coaching staff to players, looked me in the eye and said thank you with a smile and with respect. And it's quite remarkable. Normally in these things, players, etc., are in a rush or they're too busy. She says every single one of them did that. A week later, we had the final, the FA Cup final. And the chair of the FA, Debbie, also ended up sending me a nice email after the final. And she said to me something also interesting. She said, we saw something very special in the FA Cup final. Obviously, commiserations on losing the game, but never have we seen in the FA Cup final a team put a guard of honor to the winning team. And Manchester City did that. And then, again, the way the players, the coaches, every member of Manchester City, from board members to management, the way we behaved, she said, was a great reflection of how this team is in terms of respect, humbleness, and just the attitude. And I think this is something I'm very, very proud of. It's winning. It's about winning, of course, but it's also about how you behave when you win and how you behave when you lose. And that, I think we have something very special in this club. And this is why we are successful, and this is why I'm confident we will continue to be successful.
And I don't want this to sound like a goodbye to Pep. So where are you in terms of his contract and those conversations?
Oh no, with Pep, listen, we've had this conversation many times before. You know that over the years of the contract. Pep has always been fully committed to this club, fully committed to every contract he's signed with us. The decision on his future is always a decision we take together, and I have no doubt we will find, as always, as we always have done, the right solution that works for Pep and works for us.
Now, if we move on to players, I know you don't like talking about individual players because it's a team game, but I'm going to try and make you talk about individual players. And I've got to start off with a bit of a quiz, all right? So I've written this down. So, do you remember who said this and about whom in 2019? And this is where I'm quoting. Here is a player who accepts the evolution of his role. He will be a superstar, one of the most important players of his generation, and the best thing he has done is taking the decision to be patient.
Fortunately, I can still remember what I've said. So that was that was when I was speaking about Phil.
Correct.
I've had the privilege of watching Phil develop from being an 8-year-old young player at the academy. I've seen him in my own eyes as an 8-year-old, as a 9-year-old, as a 10-year-old, and as he's grown from age group to age group within the academy and then making it all the way to the first team. I think throughout that journey, it was clear to all of us where Phil was going. And it was always about giving him the right environment and ecosystem and the right development framework around him to help him grow to what he is today. Arguably one of the most decorated English footballers ever.
And you could see that 8-year-old City fan. We still see pictures of him walking out hand in hand with a player as a mascot. And to think that he is now, would you categorise him as a leader in that dressing room?
Absolutely. He's a leader, and I use the word craft because football to Phil is a craft. He loves it, he's passionate about it. Nice story with Phil. The last game of the Premier League season, the day before, the West Ham game, I was attending practice, the last training before the game. And practice finished, and I was chatting with someone. All the players left towards the dressing room, but there was one player that was still on the pitch, taking shot after shot after shot, and he was at the 18-yard line, the central point of the 18-yard line, and he was taking shots just on target, alone, nobody left. So I walked towards him. He made one brilliant shot to the top corner, and I remember I spoke to him. I said, Phil, wonderful, but keep that for tomorrow.
Phil, in the game tomorrow, that same one in the game tomorrow.
Get us that league, huh?
Yeah.
Get us that league. Come on. And sure enough, next day, 3 minutes into the game, he does exactly that shot. Exactly that shot. And I think there's a lot of lessons in this about, that love and commitment and craftsmanship that Phil has towards the game, and how really, even at that level, last game of the season, he was still out there, and then the next day you can see how practice makes perfect.
I mean, while we're talking about individuals, and no disrespect to anybody we don't mention, but Erling had an injury, interrupted season, people were on his back, he ends up winning the Golden Boot, and Rodri ended up winning nothing, but played 70-odd games without defeat for City, so those two probably deserve special mention again.
Well, those two and many others, but when you have achieved excellence, which is I think what we continue to achieve in this club, expectations are so high, and that's natural. When you win, as much as we've won over the years, people's expectations are incredible. I mean, if you look at Erling on a standalone basis, and he's missed, as you know, many weeks because of injury, he still ended up with, I think, 38 goals for the season. 38 goals for a season, and you're getting people are thinking this is an off year. So Erling is Erling, and Erling is a goal machine and continues to be, in my opinion, the best striker in the world. Rodri is another. I mean, if you look at it, he's had, I think, the record, the most number of wins streak for the team, unbeaten, sorry, not win streak, but unbeaten in European football history. I mean, that's it's extraordinary. I think only, if I'm not mistaken, the two AC Milan players, Maldini and Albertini, were at one game behind him. So that level of and standard of excellence is extraordinary. Is extraordinary. The position he plays is not the glamorous position, but he is absolutely fundamental to this team, and one of the most critical reasons why we continue to win and succeed and achieve what we are achieving. There's many other players. In the last 4 years, we won the best player in the league 4 times, and by the way, 4 different players. This says it all. It's a team. Be it Ruben Dias 1 year, be it Kevin De Bruyne the second year, be it Erling Haaland last year, and this year Phil Foden. So that shows you we have a team. This is a team. It's not individuals. It's the grouping of very talented, highly motivated, and very disciplined players that have a shared vision and a shared mission, and they go about it in a way that I think exudes the highest level of excellence.
And it's a team that evolves as well, and youngsters come in and players go and new ones come in. But I guess Rico Lewis and Oscar Bob and Micah Hamilton this year was sort of pushing his way through. So how integral is the academy to the sustainability of the first team, and how sustainable is it, I guess, is the question.
It's very sustainable. We are very careful in keeping that squad always fresh, with a mixture of new players coming in, players, I think, leaving at the right time, and then a boost from the academy. So that tells you everything. We always maintain that balance.
What bearing do the current regulations have on what you can and can't do this summer in particular? Because it feels like, to the layman, certainly, it's a complicated landscape. There's FFP, PSR, squad cross ratios, 70% rule in Europe. I mean, how hard is it to navigate all those regulations? And will that make this summer's transfer market subdued, or do you think it will be buoyant?
Specifically for us, or in general in football?
Well, both.
Okay. I think the Premier League got to where it is today by being the most competitive league. So I hope there's a bit more sensibility in regulating. Always a balanced approach is good from all the leagues, be it in England or the rest of Europe. I think you won't see the same level as we've seen in the past years because of the level of regulations that have come to place over the last 12 months.
Is it likely then that there'll be fewer cash deals and more swaps or player plus cash? Or?
No, even that, because there's also been a lot of restrictions now put in place on swaps and loans. So even that is now much more restricted. So I think the level of maneuverability that was in place before, that allowed teams to do what they were able to do in the past, I think is much more restricted this year, and that's going to be reflected, I believe, this summer.
So this week's seen a lot of discussion about player overload, and it's a subject that's been going on really all season. Do you think we are asking too much of our players in relation to the number of games they're being asked to play?
So I'd like regulators to focus more on that. So I think at the end of the day, my message here is, let's focus on the mental health. Let's focus on the physical health of our players. I think that is very important, rather than spending so much time on regulatory issues that are just kind of slow down the growth of the game. To my point when I started, I mean, it felt the last 2 years as almost one season interconnected. It's not enough time to both physically and mentally recover, and it's too much. It's too much. And I think no doubt the international schedule of demand is just too much on these players, particularly with these competitions that they continuously compete in. So there's a lot of contradictions in it. So you restrict the size of the squad, you put a lot of regulatory constraints on that, but at the same time you ask the teams and the players to play more games. So something has to give.
Chairman, how disappointed were you losing the FA Cup to Manchester United?
Very disappointed. I think it was a game, for sure, everybody wanted to win. It's the FA Cup, it's against Manchester United, it's doing the double-double back-to-back. So from that perspective, very disappointed. But always, you have to think of the silver lining. One of the things you always want to avoid is complacency. You never want to be content. You want to keep that hunger. And there's always a silver lining. You have to find a silver lining after defeat, particularly. And, Pep obviously was very, very disappointed himself. And we had just won the league the week before. And to end on that note, and I spoke to many that day, and I told them, listen, sometimes a bad thing is a good thing. Maybe leaving with that feeling in our stomach of unfulfillment is going to help us a lot next season. Great season, yes. Disappointed we lost at the end with the FA Cup. More importantly, now we come back hungrier because we want to win this again. We want to go for the treble again, and we're going to try to win every competition we compete in. And I think this is, for me, that silver lining, which is no complacency, no content, always hungry.
And we've not really mentioned the Club World Cup or gone into detail. What was it like watching City win that?
It's a great joy, and being able to compete with teams from all over the world outside Europe for a serious competition, and then winning that trophy and now having that badge is is absolutely fantastic. I'm so proud of it. Having it for the rest of the season, this season, having it all of next season, and then the privilege now of qualifying to play in the next new edition of the Club World Cup is a great privilege.
What next?
We've done 4 in a row. Now we're going to go for 5 in a row.